Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Hope you guys had a good break and all set to resume the session. So, in the last part of Zoho Recruit's training today, we would be covering automation. Before I go ahead, if you all could just type in a yes and a go ahead, just to make sure you are able to hear me well and you're all ready to start. All right, thank you so much. I think we are good to start the session. Give me a minute here while I share my screen. All right, you guys should be able to view my screen now. That's great. I see all good now from Ron, so I'm going to consider that and go ahead. All right, guys. So as I mentioned, we would be covering the automation part. And as you can see, though it's just, a small section which is available under setup, it is a very exhaustive topic. There are so many parameters, so many aspects to be considered, and various use cases and combinations that could be combined to make sure your ATS is automated. So I'm just going to brief you a bit before I start, because I think it's very important to let you know and emphasize on the fact that automation is very, very important for Zoho Recruit or any ATS for that matter. So, like Aruna mentioned right at the beginning, there are a few people who still are wondering, when we have Excel and email, which is going to be convenient and in a way traditional method to carry out. If you have chosen to, or take this step ahead for an ATS, everything is going to be completely automated. um just a moment, are you guys able to view my screen? All right, sorry about that. We just one of my colleagues just mentioned they weren't able to view it. Could be a user specific issue. Anyways, I'm just going to continue. So as I was saying, now that your customers have taken a step to use an ATS, which I'm sure most of the partners can relate, they could be purchasing various other Zoho products, but they would have at the end, or at the very last, consider to buy probably an ATS or so. So now that you do have an applicant tracking system, you have to make sure it is as automated as possible, just to make utmost usage of the ATS, because I cannot tell you how important it is to be able to automate your system and what a change it could bring in your recruitment process. You'll be able to completely fine tune your hiring strategies, streamline it, and have instantaneous responses, because I'm sure you guys can relate. If you guys are up with a query and we reply instantly, we do understand that we you're extremely satisfied. So it's the same thing which happens with candidates, vendors, or clients. So any automation which could start with a very simple email, so they might ask you something and you might reply, or they're constantly updated as to where they are in the recruitment process, is very much necessary. Secondly, you will have to reduce the time that is taken, the manual work that is taken to perform your actions. Also reduce the time that it takes to execute it. So for all of these reasons, I mean, I could literally go on and on about why automation is necessary, but I think it is something that we should be recommending to every customer to just have a look at it, at least from a very basic level, which starts from workflows. Because I'm definitely sure that this at least would be one of the last things that they would look into. And most of our customers do say that the system in itself is very intuitive, but I haven't really looked into automation. So probably you can, with this training, you will be able to pick up just a few pointers, and you could drop them an email and see if they're really interested in what it could possibly do and the scope that it's got. And I'm sure they'll be really impressed with the features that we are to offer. All right, so without any further ado, I'm just going to get into the first topic, which is going to be workflow rules. One of the most important automation features that we provide and is available in all the editions, so standard, professional, and enterprise. In all of those editions, you will be able to find workflows. And I would say for a company, let's say very small scale organization or a very simple recruitment process based company. So they can definitely benefit from workflow rules and would be more than enough to have their system automated. Because how much ever I, stress on the fact that, you have to make it as automated as possible, there are going to be a few organizations who really like the comfort of having it done manually. And I mean, that's we should, allow them to take a call on that. So for people like them, workflow would be just a small step to have it all a bit automated, and then we could go on to the bigger picture. So under workflow rules, you will basically be able to perform certain actions automatically based upon a trigger. So as partners, I do believe that you guys would have had an idea of what a workflow is from of various other products such as Zoho People, CRM. You would have seen the usage of the word workflow. So it's the same concept that we have adapted here. It's probably just the way that we configure is going to be different. So I'm going to quickly show you how we can configure it so that you'll be able to understand what it does, where we can use it, and all of that. So by default, there are going to be a few default notifications which are already available for your customers and would have been enabled. So please make sure that, recently we have made a change that we disable it, and if they want, they can enable it. But you can always let your customers know initially if they find it too overwhelming to create one and understand what it is. They can enable the rules which are already present to start off with, and if they have a use case which pushes them to create a new rule, let's see how that can be done. So we're going to be clicking on create rule. So I'm going to be taking a very simple and a relatable use case, which is an autoresponder when a candidate submits their application. So this is a thank you email for the candidate applying for the job. So I'm going to choose the module as candidates. The module that you choose here is going to be the trigger that you use. So in the workflow, the trigger that you're going to use where on which module is going to be performed, that would ideally be your base module. So you shouldn't worry too much about the email template. So there have been questions saying, that my email template has details which is related to both job opening and candidate, since a candidate is applying for a job. But ideally, the trigger that you use would decide your base module. So that's going to be candidates. Rule name would be thank you notification. Any description to quickly find out what the workflow is about? Next. All right. So your first is to specify the when, that is the trigger of your workflow rule. There are going to be two subcategories as to when you would like to execute this rule. One is going to be on a record action. Next is going to be on a date or a date time field. So firstly, let me walk you through the date time field because we would be creating the workflow on a record action. So on a date or a date time field, what you can do is you can choose any date time field over here and make sure that the rule is executed on the basis of it. So for example, created time. And you have the option whether you would like to execute it on that particular date, after a certain days or before. So before would probably be useful for any other time. So it could be, a last email time or so. You can also change the time of execution. So since it's a daytime field, by default, it picks up the same time. If you want, you can also give a static value for that and specify the execution cycle, how often you would like to execute this. So one of the examples could be if you would like to follow up on the candidate once they have been created. So I would be choosing on a date or a date time field, which is going to be created time. 7 days after my created time, that is a week later, I would like to just, check on the candidate and, see if they're interested or however it may be, or it could probably just be a reminder for you to reply to them and proceed to the next step. So it depends upon the time frame that every organization's recruitment process follows. So you can probably specify that. And for my use case, once would be all. So I would just choose once and I would like to just follow it up once. Or it could be every month. So on a monthly basis, if you want to constantly keep in touch with them, um, it could be anything. So you can have, one such use case, or you can also use every year. So usually, at least as far as I know, I haven't seen a recruitment process going on for a year. So um, every year could be considered to get their consent probably. So since the created time, every year I would like to just get the consent or so. Or it could also be like a birthday reminder. It could be anything for that matter. So based on your use cases, you will have to choose the execution cycle, and one of the examples, as I mentioned, would be based on the created time. So on a record action, you will be able to choose from these various options. So we have create, which is at the time of creation, you would like to execute this particular workflow. Edit would mean any type of edit that is performed would trigger this action. And I would like to make sure that edit would mean when you click on the particular icon. So I'm just going to duplicate the tab. So when you click on a record, you have an edit icon. So only when you click on this will the workflow be edited. And while I'm on the screen, I would also like to mention that any update that you do in this manner would be considered or regarded as a field update. So if you would like to execute the workflow upon a field update, this is what it would do, and edit would be this. So this isn't entirely vice versa. So what I mean is when you click on edit, so, or let me say, yeah. So let's consider this workflow will be executed when the record action is set to edit. So that means only when you click on this, it would work. If you do a simple update like so, it will not work. But if you consider the record action to be a field update, so if I choose field update and I choose a particular field, which is street, this would work even if I do a field update like so. Or when I click on edit and I'm editing a lot of other factors along with that, I'm also editing the street. Even in that case, it would work. So that's the basic difference between your field update and your edit. Just wanted to quickly convey that. So next we have create or edit as well. So that is whether it's on create or on edit, you would like to execute it. Field update, like I mentioned, you can specify a maximum of 3, and you can combine them with an and or operation by using all or any. Next we have got change status. So it could be from any status to any status. That is, whenever there's a status change, you would like to notify. So there could be the case that you would like to notify the hiring manager whenever the candidate is progressing in your hiring pipeline. So you can make sure that from any status to any status, I would like to notify. Or most popularly used for workflows would be rejection and selection emails. I'm sure you guys can relate. So you can make sure that from any status, if it has been changed to qualified, so that there's an automated email sent to them and you don't keep them hanging as to after the application where they are. It could be on hired, rejected. So these cases can be used, and we also have delete. Unfortunately, there is an issue with the test account. So you will have on candidate applying for a job as well, which will be one of the record actions available under candidates. So that way, not just when they have been created, but when they're applying for a job. So that would mean they are using the web forms. So when they're applying using the web forms from any external platform, then it would trigger the email. So in the use case that I mentioned, a thank you notification, if I keep it as create, that would mean even if a recruiter is manually uploading a resume, even then it would send out the notification. So to eliminate that, we have on candidate applying for a job. I'm sorry that I'm not able to show it to you right now, but that would be one of the options. So let's consider change of status. So usually what recruiters would do is once you receive the application, they would quickly qualify them as well. So what you could do is from any status to qualified. So that is when I would like to notify them saying, thank you, we have received your application and we are screening them, or we would call you for the next process. So that is my trigger, the when. Next is going to be which records. So on which records would you like to apply this rule on? So there could be a number of records which satisfy the criteria mentioned, that is change of status, but I might not want to send out an email in my case to all the records, but only records matching a particular condition. So let me show you an example so you have better clarity. So let's say records matching the conditions. Okay, let's put in experience in years. Okay, so what this would do is whenever the status of the candidate is changed from any status to qualified and the experience in years is greater than or equal to 3, only then it would trigger the email. So you can have it in that manner so that not all candidates that are being qualified are notified, only if they have a certain set of experience, or it could be anything. It could usually be based on the city, the assigned recruiter, because in few cases only um, there could be different processes followed by recruiters based on the freedom that the organization provides. So they could make sure that if the assigned recruiters themselves, only then they would like to send, or it could be based on a city. So only for a particular region, I would like to send out this email. Probably it could be a notification calling them for an in-person interview. So you have to make sure that they belong to a particular country or a city. So that could be a few of the conditions, to name a few. And I would be clicking on next. Next is you have instant actions and scheduled actions. So in the workflow, we have set up when you would like to execute it, change of status, on which records, the candidates satisfying the criteria of experience greater than or equal to 3. And next would be your instant actions. So under instant actions, the actions that you see here differ based on the edition that you are in. Primarily, you should be able to view send email and tasks, which should be visible for you. Field update, webhooks, and custom function are considered to be advanced automation. So for the workflow, I would be considering send email because it's one of the basic ones, and we would be covering the other 3 at a later point in time. So you can choose send mail, and you will have to create an alert. An alert is nothing but choosing an email template and choosing the recipients who would be receiving it. So I would be clicking on new alert in case it hasn't already been created. So I'll show you where you can create it as well. So when you click on new alert, you can name it. Any existing email template can be chosen, or if you're not able to find it, you can create a new template as well. So when you create or click on new template, it will redirect you to the setup page, which Aruna had earlier showed, to set up your email templates. And once you get back to this window, you will have a refresh. So this would be substituted with refresh. You click on that, it will be updated in the drop down. So you choose that. and most importantly, your email recipients. So, who would be receiving this? Mostly it would be your candidate's email. Associated job openings. So, if you want the associated job openings hiring manager to also get a notification that I have sent it out or so, you can choose that. And various other modules or standalone users, which is based on users, roles, groups. So, it could be that the administrator should receive it as well, or any additional recipients outside the system as well. So if they aren't necessarily users of Zoho Recruit, you can also include them. So, and it would also send out an email to the respective person. So once that's done, you would just be clicking on Save and Associate, and that would have been created. You can also add in any other action that you would like to perform. Next is going to be the scheduled actions. So scheduled actions is you wouldn't want to instantly send this out, but only after a certain period. So you can choose from these options: hours, days, or minutes. So you can probably put in 2 hours after rule trigger date. And you would have to choose a action. So you can choose to schedule it as well or choose instant action. So it completely depends. Now, a good example would be in the same use case. I'm sending a thank you alert, and after a day or so, I would like to create a task for the recruiter himself. So you can create a task for yourself to make sure that you reach out to the candidate again and just see if they have replied or not. So it could be when you're sending out the thank you application, you might request them for additional details. So you could probably say, send in your mark sheets or so. And after a day's time, you can set up a task for yourself after the rule trigger date to check if they've sent it or not. So that could be one of the use cases. So the basic idea with workflows is to be able to automate your actions by setting up a trigger date and further categorizing it by filling in a few criterias. So a few pointers that should be noted with workflows is you will have an option called manual trigger, which is available. So this will be usually available upon create, edit, or create or edit. So whenever you choose any one of these options, you will be able to enable the manual trigger. A manual trigger is nothing but before it is sent out, there's a pop-up on your screen with the preview of the email template. You can go through it and click on skip or send. So this is something that provides a sigh of relief for all of our customers because when I explain regarding workflows, it's a bit overwhelming and they're not too sure. But manual trigger gives the control back to the hands. So it is automated. It's more like a reminder that, oh yes, I have to send this out. So it gives them a preview. So if they want to add in something, so usually we set this up for interview notifications because they could have a venue or a meeting room that they'll have to fill it in at the last moment. So once they create it, there's a pop-up, they update the meeting room details, and then it's sent out to the candidate. So this is one thing that you need to keep in mind to make sure you trigger the workflow manually and then it sends out the email. Next is whenever you're trying to send an email, I had shown you that you had an option to create an alert and template on the go. So I'll show you how to create an alert beforehand in prior so that you have a better idea as well. And I hope scheduled actions is also clear. So under scheduled actions, you will be specifying a particular time period after which it should be executed. And then you add the new scheduled actions if necessary. So the scheduled actions is based on the rule trigger date and not based on instant actions. So if there is a case that you want it to be executed only after the instant action, that wouldn't be possible. So let's say by chance you haven't set up your email authentication or relay or It just happens so that the email wasn't sent to them. It will still schedule, the scheduled actions will still be executed, and you will have a task for yourself. So it is based on the rule trigger date, and there is no way to verify that the instant action has actually been performed, and then the scheduled action should be performed. So this is just a time that you provide after which the particular action should be performed. So I hope that's clear about workflow. I made sure that I had explained everything in detail. Oh, sorry, I almost forgot. If I could just show you one other option. Yep. So whenever it is based on chain status, you'll also be able to give in criteria based on job opening, because a very important aspect of Zoho Recruit and how it's placed is there is a candidate to a job opening relation always, and in terms of status. So when you're trying to change the status of the candidate, it is most probably with respect to a job opening. So you can also specify job opening related criteria here, and you can also give in multiple criterias in the form of and or operations in between. So this is something that I also wanted to mention. All good. So once this is done, you can enable it or you can deactivate it in case you're not currently using it. Next, we would be going to actions. So whatever you would be including under the workflow under instant actions will all have to be set up here. So let me walk you through that. So now that you have a fair idea of how workflows work, you should be able to correspond to what I would be talking in terms of setting up your actions. First is going to be alert. As I mentioned, these are email notifications where you would be specifying the recipients, and this can be associated in any other automation feature, such as your workflows, blueprint, or your approval. So we saw workflow where we were able to include an alert, but we created it on the go. So if you want to create one already and be able to pick it up when creating a workflow, click on create alert. The screen is going to look very similar to the one that we just saw. Choose an email template. If not, create a new one. Choose your recipients, additional recipients, save. Similarly, we have tasks. We also saw the pop-up previously. So it's the same thing. Subject, due date, priority, who it should be assigned to. Do you want to notify the assignee, remind, so on. So you can just play around with the task, set up the due date, and next is going to be field update. So let me take you through here so that you'll have a better idea. So, okay. So you'll be able to perform a field update, which would mostly, entitled to customization. So if you have something customized or have a customization in your mind, field update will be used in that case. So you can make sure that whenever an action is being triggered, you can update another field in correspondence with that. So it could be anything. One use case that I've seen a lot would be to capture the timestamp. So let me show that to you. So we can go to candidates. All right. So it could be the case that if there's any inactivity in a candidate record, I would like to change the candidate owner to the administrator. So in my workflow, I would say modified time is greater than 2 weeks. So if it's greater than 2 weeks, execute my field update. So my field update would be to update owner, choose candidate owner, and you'll have a lookup field here. You can choose who would be the owner and they would be automatically assigned as the owner. So this is one option. Similarly, you could assign anything. It could be email opt-out should be enabled automatically if they haven't replied or so. All right. So these are all the fields that you would usually see. Multi-line wouldn't be available. So it would usually be single line and other types of fields that you can use under field update. So, a tip here is that it's in fact not really evident as you would see it. So, this could be an useful option for you. So, let me see if I'm able to find a datetime field. Great. So what you can do is, I did mention that one of the most popularly used use case for your field update is going to be to capture the timestamp. So let's say whenever there is a change of status of the candidate from new to qualified, I would like to capture the date when that happened. So this could be used in reports. Primarily, it would be used in reports, or you can also perform something else on that. So that date time field in turn can be used in a workflow, and you can make sure 2 weeks after I change it to qualified, update the candidate. So it could go on and just have a chain of workflows to make sure it's automated. So the thing about a date time field is, if you choose a date time field, I know it's not relevant for a use case, but I've just chosen a date time field to show you the option. You can choose a particular date, a static date that it should be updated to, or you have something called execution day. So when you click on execution day, this automatically captures the timestamp when this had occurred. That is when the workflow has occurred, the execution day. You can also have plus 7 days. So, that way you don't have to create another workflow. Whenever it has been qualified, that is, the change of status has been changed from new to qualified, I would like to update the daytime field as execution day plus 7 days, so that on this date I can trigger another workflow. So this is something that is usually not too evident or could be hidden. So you can use execution day so that you don't have to create another workflow and capture all of that. So pretty straightforward, I would say, the field updates. And we would be moving to a much more advanced action, which would be webhooks and custom functions. So I would be explaining both of them together because they are pretty much the same, just the usage would differ. So, webhooks and custom functions are entirely dependent on your APIs. So, we have open source APIs that we provide in Zoho, throughout Zoho. However, the protocols that is followed in every product could be different. So I'll try to be not too technical about it, but let me just give you a few pointers so that you can probably look it up later, or you can just try to wrap your head around what I would be saying. So in Zoho Recruit, we use a basic authentication method. So in your APIs, we use the authentication method as basic authentication, and we would soon be migrating to OAuth 2.0. So partners, you guys would have noticed that CRM books, all of them had a sunset date long back for their version 1 APIs and have switched to version 2. So that's exactly what I'm trying to convey. So we would also be soon migrating to V2 APIs, a version 2 APIs, which would be using OAuth 2.0 protocol. So this is used for increased security and also making sure that they have restricted access with the system. So when you're sharing your auth token or your API, the person who would be using it, in most cases your developers, have restricted access to the data that they can ideally access. So that's the reason why we are migrating. um, so our consultants have already started implementing any custom functions or webhooks with our version 2 APIs. So we would suggest our partners to also start using it, because it would be difficult to then backtrack and see for whom you did the V1 APIs and change it over. The migration and all of that hasn't been finalized yet, but just to be on the safer side, I would suggest you to use our version 2 APIs rather than the version 1. But for today's training session, I would be walking you through the V1 APIs. All right. So all that I mentioned right now was regarding Zoho's APIs. So there are two ways to use your webhooks and custom functions. So one would be to update information within Zoho Recruit. So customers, when they really ask why exactly do I have webhooks and custom functions, and why should I upgrade my edition, In simple terms, it is for um, automation that should be done based on dependent modules. So that is when you would be seeking for custom function and webhooks. So I showed you that in field update we were able to choose a single module and update a field. So that would work provided my workflow module is also the same module. So there could be cases where if something happens in the job opening, I would like to update some information to the associated candidate. So that way we have dependent modules which are involved. So that is when you would be going for webhooks or custom functions. So that is one use case. So either you might want to perform an automated function in updating or performing an action within the same module or in the dependent modules. So there might be some relation between two modules which you would like to update using the APIs. So that is one thing. Second could be to establish integration between Zoho's applications. So if you want to update some information from here to any other third party API, you can do that. So a possible example could be Zoho People. So they recently introduced an onboarding module. So if you want to push information of the candidates from Zoho Recruit once they've been hired to the onboarding module, that is when you will have to do this. It could be to books. So if you're a staffing agency company, then you can just, make sure your client and contact information is pushed to Zoho Books so that they can raise invoices from there. So these are a few possible use cases where it would be used. And third would be for integration with any third party application apart from Zoho. So I'm just going to sum it up why we would use webhooks. One is going to be updating information within your Zoho Recruit account, either within a module or with dependent modules. Second would be between Zoho's applications. Third would be between third party applications. So that is when you would be using this. So in simple terms, a webhook will be used when you can only call one API. So it is used only for one API call. Any manipulation or so cannot be done with that. So if I click on configure webhook, so you can see that you will name the webhook, give a URL to be notified. So let me just duplicate the tab, show you the API document that we have. So under developer guide, you will be able to find all our APIs. As I said, they are open source APIs, so you'll be able to find them. So let's say we have a very simple one, which is update records, mostly used. So here you have the URL. So this URL will be updated here. The method will also be mentioned in our API documentation. You'd be choosing the modules, append entity parameters. That would mean if you're updating the status field. So you would be choosing candidate status and updating it here. And your custom parameters would be default ones that we use, such as auth token, scope, version, whatever that appears in the URL by default. So the XML data, the things that would be, is subjected to change, or what you would be updating will be typed in here. And you will also have a preview URL and click on save. So you cannot execute a webhook as it is. You will have to associate it to a workflow, execute the workflow and see if the webhook is working or not. So by a single API call, I mean that I would just be able to update records. So if I'm using update records, I'll just be able to use that over here. If there is a use case that after I update the record, I'll get a response, and from that response, I would like to manipulate something, check a few things, and then perform another action. So that is when you will have to switch over to custom functions, and it cannot be achieved using webhooks. So webhooks is for a very simple use case, one API call, that is when you can execute this. So I think I can take over to custom functions and show you that. So we have recently introduced custom functions usage to see how many API calls have been exhausted, how many more to go. So it has recently been introduced about a week back, and your failures will also be able to will also be listed here. So for custom functions, I'm going to take you an example and show you. I'm sorry if it's going to be a bit too complex, but I'll try to keep it as simple as possible. So the first custom function, so configuring, you can just click on configure custom function and you can click on write your own and it'll take you to the script editor. So I'm going to take an already created one. So you're just going to name your custom function appropriately, and then you would be specifying your module. So that is very much important. So when writing custom functions, you can do it two ways. So one is going to be built-in functions. Built-in functions are something that is available under Deluge. So I'm sorry, I did probably miss it out. So the functions that we write, it is basically a script editor where you can, use any scripting language and write it. So in Zoho Recruit or in any Zoho product, we use Deluge, which is Zoho's own scripting language. So in Deluge is how you would be writing the code. So Deluge has its own built-in functions. So, most of the products have a few common API calls that we would be doing. So that has been built in. So you don't have to ideally call an API. Just use a built-in function and you'll be able to get the result. So one such example is this. So what I've done is I've just specified a variable, which could be jobs. And what you can do is you can call the built-in function. So you will be able to call the built-in function using Zoho dot recruit dot, and these are the built-in functions that are predefined by Deluge. So I'm sure partners, if you have an idea of custom function, you will be able to find that, because it's not something that's only available to Recruit. You can choose any product for that matter. So if you have reports, subscriptions, books, all of that. So it's just that under Recruit we have a few of these. So if you choose one of them, so let's say I would like to add a record, it gives you what needs to be defined. So you have to choose the module. Let's say I would like to add a candidate. So I choose candidates module, and the key value, which is the XML data, or the data should be populated here. So it makes things a lot more easier because it lets you know what are the parameters. You don't have to call an API. You don't have to use an auth token, and you're good to go. So I've just used the built-in API, and uh, you know, I've just tried to display it and it will give you the result. So get records for job openings will list all the job openings available in Zoho Recruit. So this is the basic function of the code that I've written here. So a few reasons why you will have to be forced to use an API call would be: one, we have a limitation with built-in functions. So when you choose Zoho Recruit, you can see that we just have about 5 APIs, but major APIs, which customers could be asking, could be missing from here, such as update status, change status, um, or associate a candidate, unassociate. Few APIs could be missing, which could be one of the use cases why you will have to call APIs. Second is, let's say I am using update record, but we have a restriction of choosing the module only up to custom module 5. So if you have a number of custom modules that the customer is using, which is more than 5, you will have to use your API. Lastly, when you'll have to use this is, for few customers, they have created a login, or they share login credentials of a user who might not be the admin forever. So you will have to absolutely use the auth token which has been generated by the admin. And as you can see, there's no provision to give an auth token in the built-in function. And that way you will be forced to use an API call where you can include your auth token. So these are the 3 use cases. One is if you don't have a built-in function. Second, if your custom module exceeds more than 5, or you're not able to find your module at all. Third is if the login credential that you're currently using wouldn't be the admin. So it is very important that you use the admin's auth token, so that um, for continued execution of the workflows. So I also have one other example, which is going to be chain status. So chain status is where I have used with APIs. So as you can see, chain status is not available as a default module. I had to use the auth token of the primary admin, and this is how I've executed it. So this is the basic execution of a custom code in Deluge. And whenever you're trying to fetch few details from the system itself, you would be using your parameters. So there's a lot more to custom functions, but I believe since you guys would be attending multiple products, you would have an idea of how the custom functions work. I just wanted to explain a few use cases which is specific to Zoho Recruit. So this would primarily be used to also integrate with third-party applications. So if they would like to integrate with another third party and they have their API, you can check the feasibility and use their APIs in your custom functions as well. So that's about actions. So we have covered most of the primary aspects of automation. So I'm just going to quickly go through the other ones that we have. So we have Blueprint. Blueprint is an extremely useful tool if used efficiently, and most of them might not really use it because it makes your entire process automated. So, Blueprint, as a name suggests, is basically a blueprint of your recruitment process, which is replicated into the system. So, your operations or actions that you would be taking place in the system will be completely automated, or the system will prompt you as to what are the possible options. So there could be a common misconception which says, that if there's a blueprint, everything is going to be automated. I might not have certain flexibility, but there is possibility for flexibilities as long as you're able to predict the possibilities. So from A, it is not necessary that from A it goes to B. You should be able to define from A to B, A to C, A to D, and you know it could go back to something else as well. So as long as you're defining the flexibility in the blueprint as well, I'm sure it will be very useful in replicating your recruitment process, and you don't miss anything on the way. It is consistent and overall creates a good experience for your candidates. So I'm going to be just showing you an already created blueprint and just specifying few details because blueprint is really organization specific. So I'm just going to give you a brief idea on that. And it's not necessary that your entire hiring process should be automated. It could be just a section from step 1 to 3, and the rest of it could be done manually as well. So you would be choosing any pick list or a status as the transitions from where it should be going. So from state A to B would be statuses. Mostly it would be statuses, so I'm considering that. So I would just be dragging and dropping all my statuses like so and be able to continue with my blueprint. So you would be connecting one status to other and creating a transition in between. So the transition is the one which will be available as a button when the recruiter logs in. So when they click on the transition, consequent actions will be performed and the status will be changed. So we have a few system transitions already which can be used, such as send email, associate, submit to client, etc. If you want, you can create a custom transition as well. Firstly, you'll be able to define who has permission for this. So if you remember, I had mentioned groups can be used here. So that is that. You can specify roles, users, criteria as well. So not always should this, the transition be available only if it matches the criteria. So probably only when they're qualified, the recruiters should have the option to perform this transition. So you can also perform or specify a criteria for the transition itself. During is what you would like to perform on the transition. So when they click on that, what you would like to do, whether any field update, any message, make the note mandatory. And after action would be what is performed after this. So if they click on that, there could be any email alerts, tasks, field update, the basic actions that I covered earlier will be performed. So this is how your blueprint is constructed. Few quick pointers. You will be able to add a blueprint criteria. So only if candidates, let's say the skill is of a particular skill, and only then they should go under this criteria, because there are consequent tests that you would be sending. Then you can specify a criteria for the blueprint itself, which is either based on candidates or job openings. Next is few organizations, for example, submit to hiring manager can be done at any point in time. So it could be difficult for restricting them, saying only from associated to submitted hiring manager, I need this transition. So you can have it as a global transition, meaning from any status, they should be able to perform submit to hiring manager transition. Lastly, you can also make sure you enable this, which is allow on interview decision made. So that is nothing but once an interview has been completed, you would be able to perform this transition. So these are a few pointers regarding Blueprint. I'm sure if you guys have any customer specific use cases, you can let us know and we can take it up. Next is approval process, a recently introduced feature. So this is specifically for approval. So you can do it using blueprints as well, but approval has a few features which would interest you. So I'm going to show you by creating one. So let's say job opening approval, which is mostly used. Upon record creation or edit. So in most cases, even if a job opening has been edited, they might want it to go for an approval to the higher authorities. So you can click on that. And then you would specify the rule. So when should the job opening be executed, or sorry, it should be sent out for an approval. So I'm just going by one use case so that it's easier for you to understand. So it could be that if the hiring manager is a particular person, that is when I would like to send out the job opening for an approval. It could be also based on departments. So there are a few departments that you would like to um, cover it, or only a few departments which follow the process, then that would be it. Who should be approving it? Users, roles, levels, reporting manager. This would help you when you set up your roles and your organization hierarchy. Let me just choose. You can also assign a task to the approver so that they're notified. And most importantly, you can perform a few actions upon approval and rejection. So we have got updation of fields, assign a task, alert, webhooks, custom functions. The same thing applies for rejection as well. So since we have already covered actions, I hope you'll be able to get an idea. So that's how you would be setting up an approval process. And whenever they log in, the record will be logged and the approver will be able to approve, reject, or delegate. So if they're not available, they can also delegate it to other users. Schedules is where you can automatically trigger custom functions apart from your workflows. So I would say schedules is mostly used for a sequence of actions. So probably every day you would like to execute this custom function to check something and update. So that is when you would be using. Mostly used in relation to third party applications. So if you want to update something to a third party app, so you can on a daily basis check if something has been updated and then you can push it to the application. So that is when you would be using schedules. Assignment rule is specifying a criteria and making sure based on that criteria you assign the owner for a record. So it could be a static user, a round robin pattern, or assigned to associated job openings. So one good case would be when a candidate is applying, it would unnecessarily be updated to one person who will have to take the pain and associate it to the respective person. So you can make sure that when they are applying, you associate an assignment rule under the web form, and there you can choose assign to associated job openings, assign recruiter. So at the very beginning, it's assigned to them and they can take it forward. All right, I think that's all I've got to say for automation. So we had seen how we can get started with workflow rules, set up multiple actions, which can all be incorporated in workflows, blueprint, or approval process. And we also saw how schedules will be able to trigger custom functions automatically or on a daily or a particular time cycle, and assignment rules to automatically assign ownership to records. So I hope this session was beneficial for you in terms of understanding the automation. And I think we have a lot of attendees who are waiting to have a complete walkthrough over Workily and what are the other features that we have got in store, and we have it in our roadmap. So I think without any further ado, over to you, Aruna.
So yes, Tirthana, thank you so much for walking through the complete phase of automation, right from creating workflow alerts to building custom functions. I think that would have definitely that would definitely benefit all our partners. So as Tirthana said, with this we are coming to the end of Zoho Recruits session. So we'll be moving quickly to Zoho Workily, so taken up by Guru and Swati. So before that, I would just like to quickly take you through the features that are ahead, that are in the pipeline for Zoho Recruit. So obviously to mention, to bring in more job boards, integration of job boards. So as you're aware, you can now request for new job boards, and based on the request, we'll also build in those integrations for you. And to mention the new interactive career site, so as soon as we spoke about the new career site, we did get a lot of chat and pings about getting a new account. And interest from partners who would like to see the interface of how it is looking like. So don't worry. So I'll add in all the screenshots of how the new career site is going to look like, and we'll also give you a demo account so you can work on it, so you can see for yourself how the new things are actually working off. And we are also coming up with applications module along with an exclusive job board from Zoho Recruit. So yes, that's right, I repeat it. We are coming up with an exclusive job board for Zoho Recruit. So from Zoho Recruit, so just like Indeed or Monster or any other job board, it's going to be our own job portal. So do look forward for announcements from our site on the Connect Post Partner Connect portal. So I'll be sure to let you in on the interface before the job board goes live. So also we are ready to roll out the IMAP configuration for Recruit. So based on the request that we get in, so we are configuring IMAP for accounts as well. So that's about it from Zoho Recruit. Thank you so much for attending our session. I hope this was definitely beneficial for all of you. So in case if you would like to cover some other topics or go in detail, so do write to us. We'll be sure to get on a one-on-one session with all of you. So now with this, yes, I give the control to Guru Vignesh.
Good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Guru from Zoho Berkeley. Please let me know if you can hear me and we'll start the session. All right. So, moving on to Zoho Berkeley, why Zoho Berkeley in the first place? What does Zoho Berkeley do? So, Zoho Berkeley is primarily focused on temp staffing agencies. So, temp staffing agencies, do they do a lot of profit? Yes. Getting into the stats, we have about 16 million people in a year getting placed through staffing agencies. And this is just one part of the globe. And with this said, you need a system that's going to have everything under control, maintaining of your client, maintaining of the jobs, rostering them, giving them everything. You need a system in place. And a staffing agency that has the right system does a lot of placement, and out of 10, 9 people are satisfied with their staffing agency and their performance when it comes to placing them in the right place. Staffing agencies most often provide jobs to people on a short term to a medium term and then the long term. So the jobs could vary from a day, or it could go for a couple of weeks, or it could go for multiple months. And the end point is a contractor eventually gets a full time job with a client based on his performance. So, from my perspective, there are companies who hire people for contract jobs and then they place them full time. So, for this, you need a system that's going to help you perform all these actions. And what industries do the staffing agencies cover? Staffing agencies almost cover every industry than you think. And it's just not what you see on the right hand side. Towards your left, this industry is also stepping into apparel, manufacturing, and office administrations. And to give you precise data, here it is. So people require a software that is going to perform really smart. And this is a fact on how staffing people are placed in different industries. Let's take a quick scenario. A staffing agency would get requests on a single day, every day. So in 24 hours, there are 5 job requests. They need 40 temps. They need to take care of timesheet approvals. And only if timesheets are being done, you get to create your invoices. And if your invoices are not created, then there's no agency revenue at all. So there are a lot of things happening in a staffing agency. And for this, you need a system. And that's where Zoho Workly would come into picture. And with Zoho Workly, you'd be able to do temp and client management. There's an exclusive mobile app for your contractors where they can see what job is being given to them, and they can also fill in their own timesheets. And that's exclusively for the contractors or the temp. And we have electronic timesheet. So it's of 2 methods. You can do a check-in and check-out, which automatically does a timesheet, or you can do manual timesheet entry. And then you also have invoicing. Zoho Workly is well equipped or well integrated with Zoho Books. So you'd have an option to create invoice right from the very same platform. And finally, it gives you a good lot of scheduling options where you create a job and you assign people, and on a later date, you may want to make some changes. This system would allow you to make some changes because we adapt to the open shift scheduling. Now, let's quickly walk into the product. The primary things, when you step into Workly, it's going to look same like Zoho Recruit, but here there are a few differences. Here you have a job module. This is where you create your job and start assigning people. And the other primary option that I would want to talk about is a client creation. When you create a client, there is an option for you to choose a timesheet approval. A timesheet can either be approved by a client or it could also be approved by someone within the agency. So there could be instances where your clients or the organization that's giving you the job may tell you, please don't send me emails. So please don't bombard me with emails. Well, in that case, you can choose timesheet process as agency approval. And with this said, a time A timesheet can also be performed by the contractor, or a timesheet can also be filled in by someone from the staffing agency. So we've given an open options of who needs to fill in timesheets. There could be instances where a contractor cannot carry a smartphone. Well, in that case, he can just send in the timesheet information, and someone from the staffing agency will be able to fill in timesheets on behalf of them. I'm going to walk you through a quick life cycle of how a job is created and how an assignment is being done. The reason I'm doing this is because Zoho Workly is primarily based on the jobs module. So the core is the job module. Here, when I step into creating a job, I have an option to fill in the schedule information, the basic information, and then the billing info. So these are the three divisions of how a job is created. So let's say I need a tech consultant, and I need this person to be sent to Austin Technologies. So that's my client. They've given me information of how many temps they need and what is the schedule that they need to work on. So I'm going to say start from today until this month end. And I have options to schedule the start and the end time. In case you don't know the start and end time, you can always check mark this box, and that would take you to another field where you just need to key in the total number of hours the person has to work on this job. And a person can work daily, or he can work on a specific day of a week, like let's say every Mondays or every Tuesdays, or he can go for Monday to Friday. These are the three schedule options that we currently have. But in near future, we are coming up with additional ones like bi-weekly, or even more customizable options are going to be placed here. Right now, these are the three options. Let's say I need 5 people to be sent, and it's going to be the title. The reason we're choosing the title as a mandatory field is because in the next page, we will be searching for a right candidate from the database, and we would show you the matching temp. And that's the reason we have job title as a matching criteria. A client approver is required in order to approve timesheets. Well, in the other case, in case you choose the client approval as agency, then you don't have to worry about this. Billing duration is closely connected to invoicing. So only if you fill in timesheets, your invoices are being created. Now, in your business flow, if you'd want a timesheet to be submitted every day, then the option to submit, the button submit on the timesheet would pop up right away. But if you choose weekly, then the submit button pops up only during the week end, or it could be the end of the week. So I'm going to choose daily to show you how a timesheet would look like, and the cost. So this particular job is going to be done with £20 an hour. And there's a commission that can be keyed in. So this commission is what the staffing agency intakes. So it could be a percentage or it could be a flat rate. If you look at this, your client will be billed £50 an hour, out of which £20 is for the contractor and the £30 an hour is for the staffing agency. And please make a note, we've been getting multiple requests. Is there a way that we can change it to base pay per day? Or it could be base pay per job. Now, we are checking on the feasibility. And if we find things go well, you will definitely find the other options, like I said. So it's just not going to be base pay an hour. You can also find base pay per day and base pay per job. These two things are currently being worked upon in our team. And once you fill out these details, your client could have multiple locations. You get to choose those locations from here. And this checkbox would give you an option to assign a job to a person, and he or she will have an option to accept it or decline the job offer. So I'm going to have this check marked and I'm going to save. After I save the job, I can go to schedule temps, and this is where the system performs a background search and it gives me the matching temp. So these 4 people are matching to the job details that I just given. And if I click on the filter, the search criteria pops up. So the system had searched if the person is available from this date and time, and if he or she is willing to work for the rate, and if their title matches to the job that I just created. Now, few cases you may not want to go with these, so you have to go with your custom search, like skill set, or it could be based on city or state. Well, in that case, if you have a customized search, we suggest you to get that in and check mark this box so you don't have to be recreating it every time. And after I do my personalized search, I hit on it, everybody matching to that criteria would pop up. And here I'm having this person being assigned. You can have any changes being done. Now, let's say this person is not going to be working for the entire schedule. He's confirmed that he's going to work only for a week. So you have an option to put that person only for a week. And you also have an option to customize the time. Now, when I click on publish and notify, an instant push notification will be sent to that person's mobile phone. Now, when I say mobile phone, it's about the invite that we've done for a contractor. So every contractor you bring in, on the top right corner, there's an option to invite them to a portal. So when I click on action, there's invite temp. When I click on invite temp, it is going to send an SMS. So this is an example of how the SMS is sent to a contractor. They get two links, a mobile app link and a desktop browser link. Once they download, they get to see Zoho Workly app. And like I said, there's a push notification. I click on it, I get to see the result here. So the person receiving this push notification gets to see all the job details that he wants to accept or reject. Now, in case you uncheck that particular box while creating a job, then this particular job will directly be sent to that person. Now, I am going to go ahead, click on accept the job. And once I've clicked on accept, like I said, there's a timesheet. So a contractor can fill in timesheet by himself, or it could be someone from the staffing agency who can do this. So in our case, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the timesheet. Now, after I fill in the timesheet, just give me a quick minute. Let me fill in the timesheet. All right, a timesheet has been submitted. And now, if I go to that particular client contact, he or she would have received an email. So I'm going to show you how that email is going to look like. Just give me a quick minute. Because for this job, I've set the timesheet approval as client approval. Now, from a client perspective, this is how the email looks like. And you click on review timesheet, it would have two options. You can either reject or approve it. If someone wants to reject the timesheet, then they need to have mandatory notes as to why they're rejecting. And if everything is right and everything is good, you just have to click on approve timesheet. And after you click on approve timesheet, you can go back to the job that you've created. You'd be able to see everything that we just did. So the status of timesheet under the related list would be under submitted status. And once it is submitted, you'd be able to create an invoice. And creating an invoice can also be done from the invoicing tab, or it could be done from within a job. Since Zoho Workly is directly connected to Zoho Books, you would have an option to customize the settings that you see here. Like for instance, you would want to add new line items, or you'd want to add additional wordings to the footer or the header, or if you'd want to add a clause to it. So every other customizations in terms of invoice will have to go to Zoho Books, and under settings, you have the options to customize them. And after the invoice is raised, you can go to integration and you have online payments. So based on these payment gateways, your clients would directly pay the staffing agencies. And once the staffing agency receives the payment, under timesheets, there's an option called export to payroll. Now this spreadsheet will give you information on the job, the person who's worked on it, and how much you need to be paying them. Right now, Zoho Workly does not have an integration with any payroll system, and that's why we've taken up this feature called export to payroll, which can be exported in a spreadsheet or a CSV file, and then imported into a third-party payroll tool directly without any hassle, after which you can make your payments to your contractors. So in a nutshell, you'd be able to bring in all your data through a spreadsheet via import or data migration, and after things step in, you can mass select your contractors and invite them. And after you invite them, they get an SMS, they download the portal, after which you can go back to a job, create them, assign them, and start working. Now, use cases. We are getting multiple requests on how you'd be able to do multiple assignment for a single job if a client needs more than 50 people. Well, in that case, you need to know the schedule. Now, in this case, let's say a client would want people from June 1st until July 31st. Now, they could need 75 people, but not all 75 could be working in a day. So once you know the schedule, you can directly go back to the roster view and start playing around with the contractors that you have. So in my case, I have this person. Now, if I want more people to be listed out, like I said, I click on them, and here I'd be able to delete, or I'd be able to go ahead and pull up new people and start assigning them to the job. So for this job, I need 5 people. So I right now have 1 person assigned, and I want more. So I'd be able to go here, all matching temps, and now I'd be able to start assigning new people in. So if this person is supposed to be working from the 7th, then I need to go on 7th, and from there the job gets assigned. So based on each schedule, you have to go to the roster view and keep changing. Now, what if this person suddenly turns up and says he's not going to work? Well, in that case, you have to go back to this person and click on delete. Is he not going to work only for this day, or is he not going to work for the entire schedule? And you have 2 options: delete only the selected or the repeated schedule. I'm going to delete only the selected, so that person is not going to work only for today. And the other question that might pop up is, how do I know if someone is not going to work? Well, in this case, we've got unavailability calendar in the temp portal. When a person is not going to be available, he or she can mark himself as not available, so no job is being given to them. And right now, this is done for the entire day. Very soon, we're going to come up with our option. So if someone is not going to be working for a specific time of a day, then they have an option to choose the start time and the end time, so they're not being assigned any job only for that specific time. So this tool is a straightforward, simple tool with powerful features that are yet to be developed. And few things in the roadmap is we are coming up with multi-rates. So if someone is going to work overtime, should I be paying them a time and a half? Yes, that functionality is going to be released in a month. And after which, we're also coming up with geofencing. So if a job is scheduled, I do not want a timesheet to be started if someone is off the location. So I'm going to set a parameter, and when they step in, that's when the timesheet should work for them. So geofencing is also on its way. And finally, for the construction industry, we're getting a lot of requests that the construction workers necessarily do not carry a smartphone. Well, in that case, what we've done is we are coming up with a kiosk. So it's called timesheet kiosk that can be placed in a tablet on the construction site. So when a person walks in, they'd be able to just scan their, it's going to be a facial recognition. So people just show their face and timesheet is checked in automatically, and breaks are logged, and timesheet checkout is also being done the same way. So apart from the portal that you see on timesheet, we are also coming up with a facial kiosk. So that is also on the roadmap. And finally, the reporting structure. Reporting module is going to be the same like you see in Zoho Recruit or the CRM. If you have the right field with the right information, then we can generate a report for you. So here we have job reports, which talks about the person who's been assigned with multiple jobs, or you want to see a client who's given you more number of jobs, you'd want to see the revenue. Everything is already defined here. Apart from this, if you'd want to take a new report, then that has to be created. And for further questions, feel free to write to us. We are available at support@zohoworkly.com, and we'll be able to respond to you instantaneously. And Aruna, over to you, Aruna.
So thank you so much, Guru. Let me just plug in my earphones. So just echo. Yes. So thank you so much for the introduction and walkthrough of Zoho Workally for our partners. So I believe this session would have been informative for all of you. So if you have any further doubts or queries or concerns or feedback, you can write to this email ID, so which I have just put in chat. So partner-support@zohorecruit.com. So this is the exclusive email alias which we have created for partners for advanced training. So you can feel free to reach out to us to this email ID and we'll be sure to help you out. And for Workally, you can write to support, as Guru mentioned, you can write to support@zohoworkally.com and we'll be more than happy to help you. So Michael, did you join the session late, or didn't you see the screen of Guru? So I just see your message on chat that you didn't see anything about Workally. So I'm not sure where exactly the problem would have gone, because the screen was shared and we were all able to listen to the audio as well. So I believe all of us were pretty much able to listen to the audio. I advise you to check your internet connectivity, maybe, Michael, because when we checked with other partners, so they say they said they were able to listen to the voice and both the screen. So that could be one of the possibilities, but do not worry. So if you had missed, we have the recorded session as well. So I'll send it across to you. Yeah, so as Dinesh says on the chat, so maybe you can try after refreshing, maybe if this is going to happen for you in future sessions. So, but don't worry about Zoho Workally. So I'll send you the recorded version of the session taken by Guru. So I'll take this feedback and let the Zoho Showtime team know this, Michael. We are so sorry about that. So if you have any questions with regards to Zoho Workally, you can type them up in the questions tab that you see in front of your screen. Hi, Diana. Thank you so much. We are so glad you liked it. So we are here for answering all your queries right now. So you can go ahead and post them on the questions tab. Thank you, Ajay. Thanks much. Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you, Pedro. Hi, Mary. So yes, I see your message that you missed the session two. So I'll definitely send the recorded version of this whole session to you. Thank you all. So it's so refreshing to see that the session has been informative. Thank you so much. Yes, Foster, definitely. I'll also send you a copy of the recorded session. So don't worry, do not worry. In fact, we'll send the recording of the session to all of the attendees. Thank you, Anil. Thank you, Gerald. And thank you, Sudhir. Thanks, Deepak. So we're just taking our time to answer the questions coming up in the questions tab. So yes, all the questions are answered. So I believe the session was helpful to all of you. So once again, it was really great hosting each one of you today. So until the situation contains, until the pandemic contains, so we truly wish all of you to stay safe and stay home with your loved ones. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.